Welcome, everybody, to Cinema Royale. I am Travis Hobson of PunchDrunkCritics.com. And on this week's show, we are talking about, you can tell what we're talking about because the images are right there behind me. If you're watching, of course, if you're listening, then you don't know what I'm talking about. Infinity Pool and Knock at the Cabin. So we're doing two horror movies this week, although they're both, I would say, more along the lines of thrillers than real horrors. But there are horror aspects to both films for sure. Infinity Pool is the latest film from Brandon Cronenberg. This is his third film after Antiviral, which was almost a decade ago, and Possessor, which was a couple of years ago. And Knock at the Cabin is the latest from M. Night Shyamalan, his first since Old a couple of years ago, which I also liked. I think Shyamalan's been on a bit of a roll personally. Savant is also a really good show on Apple I've liked. And I think he's been doing good stuff. Although I feel like Shyamalan will always be like saddled with, this is the best film he's done in 20 years. Like he's done nothing. He's done nothing since The Sixth Sense.
Earlier about, and still in my mind, it's everything that he did like in the mid 2000s.
Right. But I think people because and for those who don't know, that is basically our horror writer. My buddy Ronnie Sharps is joining me on this week's show. Seemed appropriate to have him for this. Went with me to see Knock at the Cabin, and then we both went to see Infinity Pool. My second time seeing Infinity Pool. So I wanted to bring him on for this. But yeah, it's like when it comes to Shyamalan, it's like, he started off so hot that when he fell into that terrible ditch, of like bad movies, like no one has ever let him forget it. Like it's like no matter what he's done since like The Happening, like people act like nothing else came after that.
Right. Well, he fell into that trap of just doing the same thing. Had the build up and then the twist every single movie. But right after that, it was just ridiculous.
Right. And I feel like one of the things that he's done is like the last two movies he's done have been adaptations.
Right.
This and old. But he's not just done straight adaptations. He's kind of given them his own spin or done like change things as to make them more his, I think.
Right. And I noticed that, like I said, I revisited the book right after we saw Knock at the Cabin, but right. I know if you want to touch on that one later, but
Cabin at the End of the World, correct?
Yes.
By Paul Tremblay.
Tremblay,
yeah. Yeah. So we're already talking about Knock at the Cabin, so we'll just go ahead and keep talking about that.
All right.
Basically talking about it, we'll go to Infinity Pool because I know we have a lot of laughs to share about that movie.
Right.
So we'll talk about Knock at the Cabin, which stars Dave Bautista, Jonathan Groff, Ben Aldridge. I believe the girl's name is Kristen Stewart. I probably said her last name wrong.
Right.
I've always loved since Landline a few years ago, and Rupert Grint, who's in Shyamalan's series Savant, and I always forget the lady's name, the black lady's name, something Bird. And I always forget it. It's I always forget it because it's three words. It's like three words, and I always forget it.
Nikki Amuka Bird.
Thank you, Nikki Amuka Bird. I always forget it. I always want to call her Naomi Aka or something. Whatever. So whatever. I always get it wrong. But anyway, Knock at the Cabin is about a family of three, a homosexual couple and their young daughter, who are vacationing in an isolated cabin until they are approached by a foursome who tell them that they must kill one of their own in order to prevent the apocalypse. A really simple setup, but one that is rife with all sorts of different themes and moral dilemmas and complications and I went into this not really knowing much about the book. I hadn't read the book or anything like that, so I just went in this looking at it as a Shyamalan film, which I think is one of the things like we just talked about that I think is great about what he's been doing, is doing stuff that taking other people's work and kind of making it his own thing. And Shyamalan to me is one of the best filmmakers at like really like self-contained thrillers. This movie takes place largely in the single cabin, and Shyamalan's so good at like driving up tension, and there's real tension in the standoffs here between these two sides, these ideological opposing sides here. That I was really into it from beginning to end, wondering how exactly it's going to turn out. Like, are we going to see the family give in and sacrifice one of their own for something that could be a fraud?
Right.
And Shyamalan throws a lot of red herrings out there too that I think are fairly effective. The only thing I didn't think that was effective were some of the flashbacks to the couples, like the couple time together. That stuff didn't really work for me as much.
Right. But it needs to build that tension.
Yeah, I get what it was for. It's to give us, reasons to care about them, and also to kind of clue us into their personalities.
Right.
The two men are distinctly different in terms of personality. So, and their backgrounds are different. So it all makes for a fuller story. I get that. But to me, even for a movie that's fairly short, it's like 100 minutes,
Yeah.
they felt like they didn't exactly need to be there. Like I don't think they necessarily added all that much into our understanding of them. We could most of the stuff that they show us, they kind of also explain like during the standoffs. So we didn't really actually need some of those flashbacks.
Right. And like I was telling you before, I mean, knowing the book inside and out, pretty much, it was beat for beat, word for word, exact to the book up until the third act.
Oh
And
wow. Okay.
I understand what they had to do to make it a little bit lighter at the end.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, I think it works perfectly by itself. You don't have to know the book to go into that. You know that in the book. It just works perfect by itself as a Shyamalan movie.
Yeah. I really liked Dave Bautista in this as well. I mean, I think like every time there's a Dave Bautista movie that comes out, or The Rock, you get the discussion about who's the best wrestler turned actor. Conversation always happens, but I think Batista's far and away the best. He's
Yeah, I
far
think
and
we
away
talked
the
about
best actor turned a wrestler turned actor that I've ever seen.
right.
Better than Cena, he's better than Johnson, better than a lot of.
Cena's not too far behind, I think. Yeah, some of the stuff he did in Peacemaker.
Cena hasn't had had to show the range
Right.
that Batista's had to do. One of the things I like about his character here is that he's not like he's a big bruiser. Obviously, he looks the part, but his character's not that. He's a sensitive guy. He's
The teacher and
right. He's a teacher and so forth. He's not mean. In fact, one of the things that I think really enhances the tension between the two sides is the fact that the Doomsday foursome, they really don't want to be doing what they're doing.
no.
Like they're actually compelled by something. So it's not like they're crooks looking for some sort of like payoff, or they're fulfilling some sort of scheme or something like that. They're all compelled by something they believe in, and that is, I think, a really key point for the movie.
Well, they set the whole thing up with that opening scene with Wen sitting there collecting grasshoppers. Same thing. Dave says something about, be careful, unscrewing the lid. You don't want to frighten the others before you put the new one in. That sort of thing. It's just setting up the whole thing of trying to keep them contained in the cabin. Yeah.
They really that opening scene did it for me too, because I was thinking about her talking about how she was observing them, like observing the grasshoppers, right. And I got this feeling of like God observing like the people, like humanity, and like right. watching us and what we do and judging us from the outside. I kind of got that. I think that I'm sure that was exactly what they were intending by saying that. But that's exactly what I got from it.
Right.
Yeah. So what aspects of it? I'm curious now. What not to go too deep into the plot, but what things are changed from the book that you could tell?
The order of the intruders' deaths kind of is altered a little bit towards the end, and the book goes a lot darker than the movie did. Without spoiling too much, it's kind of left open ended as to if the world's saved or not.
I kind of feel like, it's still kind of open ended here a little bit. Like I know things turn around, at a certain point. Like I said, we're not going to spoil too much here, but I feel like there's still like something hanging in the air there. So I don't know. I expected that we were going to get like a Stephen King type like ending where like we're going to find out something's not quite what we thought.
Stephen King also has a tendency
I always point to The Mist as my favorite.
Oh, yeah.
You got to be kidding me type ending.
Yeah. But Stephen King has a tendency to have that kind of thing where the movie's great up until a point, and then it's like he forgets how to end a book. Yeah. There's one scene talking about In the Air, that there's one scene in that movie that still to this day is bothering me about all my future flights.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. If you're really anxious about flying, this might be a movie to avoid. Sure. No, that's nightmare fuel right there for sure.
Right.
Hate that. No, but I really enjoyed this though. And like I said, I think Shyamalan is really doing some good stuff right now. Are you a Shyamalan fan? We didn't really talk about that. Are you a fan of his or not?
Like Sixth Sense, stuff like that when it first came out. When he hit The Happening and beyond that, I kind of fell away, stopped
Like most
watching because it
people,
was the same thing over and
like
over
most
and over.
people. The
Right, right.
happiness is
And I mean, we spoke about that before. It's not that I hate his movies. It's just that I don't have a desire to watch them.
yeah. I get that. I get that. I mean, look, The Happening will do that to a lot of people. That was legendarily bad. I mean, that movie.
Right.
So
I felt the same way about. I think the last one that I really dipped my toe in was The Village.
I think The Village is still pretty good, my personal.
It's okay. I'm not a huge fan.
Yeah. But it's also like when you start to see some of the signs of a turn,
True.
it's like this is starting to wear thin a little bit. But I
Right.
think like his last couple of movies, he's gotten away from those shock twist endings. Like I
Right.
think he's become very self-aware in a
Right.
lot of ways, and I think you can see that not just in the way he does his movies and the movies that he's choosing, but like his inevitable like cameo appearance that he always makes in every movie. Like I think he's more self-aware about stuff like that too. So
This one was kind of interesting.
no, so Knock at the Cabin opened this weekend. It kicked Avatar finally out of the top spot after 8 weeks.
8 weeks. Wow.
8 weeks Avatar was number one. Knock at the Cabin knocked it out with 14 million bucks, which ain't bad. Old made 16 when it came out, so it's not that much of a difference. You haven't
Right.
seen Old, have you?
I have not seen Old. That was one of the ones that's on my list.
You
But
should definitely check it out. I think it's pretty good, personally. I'm a huge fan of Vicky Krieps, who's in it.
right.
I'm a gigantic fan of hers. So yeah, she's hot. But she's also a really fantastic actress. But yeah, so Knock at the Cabin is out there now. It's in theaters. 14 million bucks this week is number one. Go check that out. All right, let's talk about another film that came out last week. Of course, everybody knows I saw it at Sundance. You've probably read my review if you're listening to this show or watching this show. So you know my feelings on Infinity Pool already. This is the latest from Brandon Cronenberg. I think it has one of the great premises. It's simple, but not simple at all. Alexander Skarsgard and Cleopatra Coleman play a well-to-do couple. He plays an author with one hit book. They go to this one book. They go to this third world country, stay at a resort to give him some ideas on the next book. And they meet a couple played by Mia Goth. I forget the other guy's name who plays her husband. Doesn't really matter. She's the catalyst for everything that happens anyway.
Right.
And they become friends. They go outside the borders of the resort. They're not supposed to. Skarsgård's character accidentally runs over a local man, and rather than go to jail, they have this insane way to enact punishment. Sort of, they can clone you, and your clone will be murdered by the family of the victim, which is just crazy. But it's a way. Of course, it costs a hell of a lot of money, and this is the way that the country, stays afloat. And of course, it's a corrupt regime, corrupt police force. All that stuff's corrupt. So they're just all getting wealthy off these rich white people doing whatever they want to do and having no consequences, which is ultimately what the movie is about. It's about people having no consequences and the extremes that they will go when there are no consequences. But there are a lot of other things going on in this movie too. And Cronenberg is definitely his father's son in some aspects. I think he's a little bit more cerebral than David Cronenberg personally.
He is.
After 3 movies, I think that's the way I'm looking at him right now. He's a little bit more cerebral. But this movie goes into some wild areas, sex orgies, all sorts of other clone on clone violence or man on clone violence, all sorts of stuff, man. This movie is absolutely insane. And Mia Goth, who I think is the best actress working today anyway, is off the fucking chart here. She has my favorite scene of the year. It's going to be my favorite scene at the end of the year for sure. And my favorite single line of the movie which it's not even. It seems like it's a throwaway line, but if you understand Alexander Skarsgård's character, her saying it is just like it cuts deeper than like any knife.
Right.
It's
like
movie,
like a
I could watch it again right now and be very happy.
oh, me too, me too. I loved Mia Goth and X. This just took it to that next level. I mean, she is amazing in this.
Yeah, yeah, she's great. Talk to me what you liked about the movie.
The movie itself, I mean, I'm not too familiar with Brandon Cronenberg. Like I told you, Possessor, I think was the last one I saw. But I can definitely see hints of his father in his work. A few of those cut scenes
Yeah,
got pretty out there.
oh, yeah,
And I mean, just all in all, I love the movie. Just to see how the further they go with this cloning, they lose a little bit more of themselves every time, and just how far they'll go is just insane. I could definitely watch this one again a couple times.
yeah. I think every time you watch it, there's going to be something new to think about.
Right.
There's a scene where there's like a feral version of Skarsgård's character that we see. And this time I was watching. The last time I was watching it with you and our other friend, I was watching and I was like, well, I wonder, like, is that a clone who never had a personality imprinted on him, or is he one who he's undergone the cloning so many times that he's just feral. This is all that comes out of it now. Like that's it.
Well, it could also be
so many things that it could be.
Well, in part, it could be that the drug that they imbibed in. You know, it's one of those things that you could see Skarsgård's original, what you think is his original character, getting further and further along with the getting into the feral mode as he smokes more and more of this stuff.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, this movie. I mean, Jesus Christ, this movie is the best humiliation scene ever. It's
just it's hard to look at Skarsgård the same. Exactly. We're talking with the Northman, he's a completely different person. This one, it's sad. You have to look away.
Yeah, it's so painful to see this physical guy, this guy who, although at the beginning of the movie he doesn't really have a lot of confidence, but that's part of the whole deal, because he gains that confidence like throughout the movie. You know, he kind of gains it, but he gains it through like false pretenses.
Yeah, he gains the confidence just being able to pull the rug out from under him. It's a beautiful scene. That scene on the car.
Oh my god. Oh man, Infinity Pool. It's just, this movie is such a blast, man.
How much is it done in the box office so far? I mean, it doesn't seem like it'd be a hot pick.
No, I don't. It didn't rank.
Really?
Oh wait, no. It was in the top 10 last week.
Okay.
It was in the top 10 last week. Let me take that back, because I forgot it came out last week, not this week. But it was in the top 10 last week, which I think at the time when I did the box office, I was like, yeah, all the Cronenberg fans who are super excited for this movie, because honestly, this year it's the movie that I've been asked about the most.
Right.
The entire time I was at Sundance, it was the movie that people kept asking me, had I seen it yet? Had I seen it yet? And tell us about it when you go after you've seen it. So it's the movie that I've been asked about the most. So I knew that there was, and horror is not generally my bag, so I don't surround myself with a bunch of people who love horror for the most part. But people were excited for this.
What are the?
I knew that there was going to be a lot of people that went to see it on the opening weekend, and they did, and then no one else went to see it though, which is what I kind of knew was going to happen.
Is there a huge difference between the one that we saw and the NC-17 version?
No, the version that I saw at Sundance was NC-17. This is the R cut, although they're apparently going to release the NC-17 cut at some point. There wasn't a huge difference that I could see, other than a couple of scenes. If you really want to see Skarsgård's junk, the NC-17 version is
right.
Like the girl at the Alamo who was super excited to know that he was in the uncut version.
But even the R version was a pretty hard R. So
yeah, it doesn't change much. A lot of the shots are the same. I think there may be one other scene that was mildly altered, which kind of a sex psychedelic orgy sort of thing going on. I think some shots in there were taken out, maybe, or shot or shown a little bit differently. But otherwise, it's almost the same. He didn't change much.
Yeah, there's a portion that I had to look away just because of the this disorienting effect of how he flashes through that sex orgy scene.
Yeah, for those who don't know, it gives you a warning before the movie about the strobing effects and what they can do. So that warning was there at Sundance too. So,
Uh,
yeah, and I can see why. I actually kind of like closed my eyes and like blinked really heavy during a couple of
right,
days. Oh, yeah, I can see why. If I was epileptic, I probably wouldn't come in here.
right. At points, it's hard to tell what you're looking at half the time. So
I know, I know, but man, this movie is so much fun. I can't wait until they put out the NC-17 cut because I'm going to go back into a theater and watch it again. That's what I'm going to do.
that's like what was that last one we did that for the extended cut for Midsummer?
Yes, yes, and that was your first time seeing Midsummer was the extended cut, which is by far the superior cut.
Yeah. Well, no, actually, I think that was my second time because I did see it. I think I saw the critic screening of it. If I'm not mistaken. It's everything kind of blurs together after a while.
The first time you saw it, because I remember we talked about it. The first time you saw it was that cut, and I told you need to go back and,
Yeah.
it's like this cut. Oh, I didn't know at the time, but which version was going to be better.
Right.
But yeah, the extended cut that we saw is definitely better.
I did see it before that. I actually took my son to go see it because I remember I missed like the first 10 to 15 minutes of it. I missed
Yeah.
a pivotal scene in the first
Yeah.
10 to 15 minutes because I
Yeah.
arrived late.
Yeah.
But yeah, that extended cut. I remember that those I've seen it like 10 times since then. It's one of those ones that makes my cut every year in October.
That's great. It's a great movie. And Infinity Pool is going to be on that list for me of movies that
Definitely
revisit every now and then when I need a Mia Goth fix.
Yeah. They're working on Maxine now, aren't they?
Yep. Yep.
So
I don't think it has a date yet or anything, though, but yeah, I'm excited for that too.
there's not many movies that I buy like the Steelbook collector's editions of, but definitely that trilogy is going to be one.
Yeah, they've done a fantastic job. I really like Ty West. I always have. I mean,
I do. How was it? House of the Devil was my first introduction to Ty, and
yeah, me too. And then I like the Innkeepers a lot.
yeah,
So yeah, I'm a big fan of his, and this is a great movie right here. I mean, well, his movies that he's done with me at Goth have been great, and Infinity Pool is great too. I can't wait to see what Brandon Cronenberg does next. He'll probably take it to Sundance because he's all three of his movies have debuted there. So
and hopefully, yeah, after this, there's not another 10-year gap or 8-year gap or whatever it was between his first movie and Possessor.
yeah, I know, right? I think whatever was going on then, he's over that. I feel like he's probably going to be like a movie every 2 or 3 years kind of guy now. So, but then he's landed on something great with Infinity Pool. I heard a lot of people who didn't like it. I heard some people like I think I told you a story when I was in line for another movie. A critic friend of mine walked past me and was like, I guess he could hear me. He's like, I don't know what the fuck you were laughing at in that movie because it's dark and terrible, and I don't know what you were laughing at. And I told him, I was like, if you can't laugh at how ridiculous this guy's situation is, then I got no help for you, man. This movie's
Right.
insane. Like, I mean, come on, it's ridiculous. It's
Yeah.
great. It's great how ridiculous this guy's situation is. It's awesome. So yeah, it definitely goes places you don't expect it to go. And
Definitely.
I suggest people, if they can, to go in as cold as possible without knowing too much.
Yeah, I mean, I went into it completely cold. Like hadn't even read your review of it. I just went in completely cold, and I was pleasantly surprised.
Our friend who went with us, she knew nothing about it either, and she can't stop raving about how good it is.
That's been the way I've been operating lately. Is I try to avoid every trailer I can and just go in completely cold on these movies.
Yeah,
Because yeah, I mean, especially with horror, you know that they put 90% of the best cuts of the movie in the trailer.
yeah. See, I'm more inclined to go and see a movie like this than I am to go see like Halloween. I've seen none of the new Halloween movies. Like
I haven't either. You're not alone with that. I haven't either.
Yeah,
So it's one of those things. It depends on the mood I'm in. Lately it's been more of the psychological stuff like Infinity Pool and things like that I've been going for. But certain times of the year, I like to go back to the buckets of blood type of stuff from the 70s and 80s. And there's a few directors out there that are still doing that. So
I'm excited for them making the Thanksgiving movie now.
I am too. I'm kind of curious. It's Eli Roth, right?
Yeah, I'm excited for that because I post that video every year on Thanksgiving. So I've been wanting to see that movie happen for a long time.
there's not many Thanksgiving horror movies. I mean, the closest they came to that was the Bruce Campbell one that I did a review for last year. It was Black Friday.
Oh yeah, wow, I forgot about that.
That was more of a sci-fi horror thriller type of thing.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. There aren't very many Thanksgiving hours. Anyway, all right. So everybody, thanks everybody for tuning in to Cinema Royale. Thanks again to Ronnie Sharps for joining me for this one. Ronnie, you got a couple reviews coming up in the next couple weeks. You know, tell people about those without reviewing them. Just what you got coming up.
This week I'm doing a Shutter release. It's a movie from Denmark called Attachment, basically based in Jewish folklore. I got that one coming out this week, and then I believe The Lair is following that one pretty close after that. I'm not really sure. And then Children of the Corn next month. So
right, Children of the Corn. I feel like I sent you an email about another one, maybe.
I think you did. Everything with the screeners coming in from Shutter, it's been kind of hard to keep track of all this stuff.
Yeah. Well,
yeah, She Came from the Woods, I think, is the other one.
Okay. Yeah. And
so
I can't remember
that one, horror comedy. I don't really know the premise.
Right.
Oh, it sounds just like everything else from the 80s, you know, summer camp type of thing.
Yes, that's right. Now I'm remembering it. Yeah, I remember it. Okay, yeah. So there's another one for you. So
yeah,
Ronnie's taking over most of the horror stuff for us, which is good because I don't want to do it, and who does want to should do it. So Ronnie's that right.
And I'll watch pretty much anything you throw at me.
Well, thanks, Ronnie, for tuning in, for coming on Cinema Royale, and thanks to all of you for tuning in to Cinema Royale. I'm Travis Thompson at punchdrunkcritics.com. You can find me there every single day, and you can find me in loads of other places here in DC. I'm not going to go down the list. Thanks, everybody. I will see you next week. Goodbye. Thanks for checking out the show. If you like what we're laying down, please subscribe to our channel and click the bell to receive notifications for all of our latest stuff.